My name is Oded Rose, and I'm the CEO of the Israel-America Chamber of Commerce. Before I introduce our panelists, just a brief introduction. Our world today is ever more complex. The challenges humanity faces cannot rely anymore on government alone to solve. Some corporations are bigger than some countries in GDP and in number of employees. Can any of you guess how many employees Amazon has? I'm not trying to put anyone on a spot here, but guess on how Amazon, Yaniv? Like 100,000, 600,000 employees Amazon has today. And it's growing very fast, especially in Israel. They're like poaching employees from other companies. Amazon is a chamber member, so very respectful of them. As Amdocs and as BlackRock, and I'll introduce you in a minute. So not only they're bigger, some corporations are bigger than some countries, but also they certainly have access to the most advanced technologies. When we are facing such immense challenges as global warming, cyber threats, the future of work, migration patterns, there is no other way but to create a strong partnership between business and government. And at this panel, I'm delighted to have both business and government, and we'll go right ahead. So Niki Fried is Florida's 12th Commissioner of Agriculture and Consumer Service, is a lifelong Floridian, attorney, and a passionate activist. From the short discussion I had with you, it certainly seems so. Born and raised in Miami, Commissioner Fried graduated from the University of Florida, where she received her bachelor's, master, and Juris Doctorate degrees. While in law school, she served as student body president, the first woman to hold this position in nearly 2 decades. Before her election, Fried worked as an advocate at Tallahassee, representing at-risk children and the Broward County School Board, and working to expand patient access to medical marijuana, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. Fried has worked with law firm as a government consultant, advocating on behalf of clients before Florida legislator. Working in private practice in South Florida, she defended homeowners against foreclosures during the 2007-2008 housing crisis. Alex Polack, to her right, is the managing director of BlackRock Israel. Mr. Polack's service with the firm dates back to 2006, including his years with Barclays Global Investors, BGI, which merged with BlackRock in 2009. At BGI, he previously served as capital markets team, in the capital market team, initiating coverage of the Israeli market in 2007 for iShares. Prior to joining BGI, he was portfolio manager at London-based hedge fund Marble Bar Asset Management. And on my left here, Yaniv Hammer is the head of AT&T Foundry Innovation Center in Israel. In the past 4 years, the foundry is AT&T Amdocs, a joint venture established to drive innovative and disruptive technologies. And Yaniv is stepping in for Shai Levy, Amdocs CEO, who had to leave on an urgent business trip last night. And Yaniv, last moment, thank you, Yaniv, for stepping in so quickly. Before that, Yaniv held several positions in Amdocs. Amdocs, as most of you know, is probably the largest software company in Israel, over 76 countries and 24,000 or so, 26,000 people worldwide. He was corporate strategy partner, chief of staff, reporting directly to the president and CEO as a strategy associate. He is on the board of 8200 Impact Accelerator, Tech for Good Startups on behalf of Amdocs, and most recently, you became a mentor in Outside, which we will talk about later. It's our pet project here. Okay. Niki, I will start with you, Ms. Fried. First, congratulations on your recent election to this position. If I may be a little provocative, you are a Democrat with a pretty green agenda. How much do you get to execute your agenda being part of a Republican cabinet? I must say this bipartisanship is quite admirable, especially in our times. What are your key goals in your first term, and how supportive is Governor DeSantis that we heard earlier of your goals?
First of all, thank you for giving me this opportunity to be here today. I am the 12th Commissioner of Agriculture for the state of Florida, as well as the first Jewish female cabinet member also for the state. So this is not only, thank you. And so, but I also happen to be, so as opposed to here in Israel, where we won't talk politics on your level, in your world, but we only have two parties, so Democrat and Republican. So certainly it is, we work a lot on trying to get bipartisan support, but in the state of Florida, the legislature, we have two branches, the House of Representatives and the Senate are controlled predominantly by Republicans. So we have a Republican Senate President and a Republican Speaker of the House. Both have more than a simple majority in both chambers. And we have 4 cabinet officers, myself, our governor who you met earlier today, our chief financial officer who apologizes for not being able to sit next to me, as well as our attorney general. And so and then 2 U.S. senators and members of Congress. So I am the only Democrat elected statewide in the state of Florida. So a humongous responsibility, not only trying to get my agenda as Commissioner of Agriculture, but also being the lead of my party in the state of Florida. So it is certainly makes me have to work across party lines. There is no other option. And so I have a very aggressive green agenda. I ran in the state of Florida what I called the 3 W's. I was very keeping on issues that I saw would cross party lines and were appealing to both Democrats, Republicans, and independent voters in the state of Florida. One is my very aggressive cannabis platform. We do have medical marijuana in our Constitution, but it has been very restricted by our conservative legislature and spoke a lot about access and affordable access to our patients, as well as our environmental issues. And so my second W was water. We have a lot of water problems and water issues in the state of Florida, from green algae to not only the lack of water, but sometimes overabundance of water, and how to create a regulatory framework that we are conserving and protecting our water supply. And my third is in the state of Florida, the Commissioner of Agriculture oversees our concealed weapons. So third is W. So when I ran for Commissioner of Agriculture, I ran on a very bipartisan platform, because I understood that in order to get elected in the state of Florida in what is considered a red state, which is Republican, I had to appeal to the independents and to the Republicans to cross over to support me. And out of 8 million plus voters in the state of Florida, we had 2 recounts, and I won by 6,753 votes. So I recognize that in order for me to get anything accomplished, I have to work with my Republican colleagues. And luckily, we have a cabinet that all 4 of us are under the age of 50. So we are very progressive as a totality, moving the ball forward on things that are impacting our state and the world and our economy. So we work together a lot on some of those issues. Governor DeSantis has been very forward-thinking when it comes to environmental issues and protecting the future of our state. So we have been able to work on a lot of those issues, and so we also work very well together as a cabinet. Luckily, our cabinet is an independent body. We also, each of us, are independently elected from our Constitution. So I have a lot of responsibilities as a cabinet officer, and I work with the cabinet on things that are responsible for the entire cabinet, but luckily I also have independence to move forward my agenda.
Thank you very much, Ms. Fried. Alex, I turn to you. You recently joined the chamber with BlackRock. BlackRock is the world's largest asset manager with over $6.5 trillion. As the saying goes, when it sneezes, the world gets a cold. Last year, your global CEO, Larry Fink, created a mini earthquake in the financial world when he announced that BlackRock is going to be shifting investments towards CSR-oriented companies using metrics that the firm developed. Can you tell us what promoted this, and what do you see has been the impact of this on the financial markets?
Okay, so thank you, Oded. First of all, I'd like to thank you very much for for inviting me on this panel and for organizing such a great event. It really is a great honor to be here. And actually, a few years ago, I don't even think we would have been having panels like this on CSR discussions. So the fact that it's happening and it's happening more and more is, I think, very important. To answer your question about BlackRock and its involvement in CSR, this is something actually that we've been talking about for many years. This isn't something that we just started talking about this year. And I think it's been highlighted more this year because it's a more prominent issue, and our leadership talks about it. But it's something which is very central to BlackRock's strategy today. I think globally, CSR is becoming more...
May I just say CSR, corporate social responsibility.
CSR, yeah. And I think it's important to recognize that actually CSR is becoming more mainstream globally. I think different countries, different cultures, different companies have different definitions of it. So, for example, from a company perspective, you just mentioned, you're calling it CSR. We actually, at BlackRock, have a different definition for it. We call it ESG, environment, social, and governance. So different companies have a different definition of it. Depending on the company, you have different priorities as well. So, whether you're a charity or whether you're a company that's trying to prevent climate change, you have a different way at looking at it. So I think it's important to recognize that, depending on what country you're in or depending what kind of company you are, you define it differently. And we at BlackRock really feel that it's our responsibility to be leaders in this space, to talk about it, and to really help our investors and clients globally to get a grasp of it. So, and I actually think investors globally are they want to see more commitment from asset managers, integrating sustainability into their investment processes. Regarding the impact on financial markets, I think a few years ago, many people will have asked, why invest in CSR? I think actually the question today is why not? And when we look at the trends globally, there's a lot more money going into ESG related type or CSR related type investments, and I think it's fair to say that it will continue. So when we look at the numbers from at the beginning of 2018, there was $760 billion in European and US mutual funds and ETF investments related to CSR investments. That's up from $453 billion back in 2013, and according to BlackRock data, we expect this to grow to $2 trillion by 2028. So definitely the assets are going in that direction. I think you're also seeing more and more products being launched in that space. We've launched a number of products this year. And I think investors are also, historically have been somewhat hesitant about investing into these products because they see it as a trade-off. They're not convinced that they're going to get the performance. But as the data becomes more granular, as analysis becomes more sophisticated, and there's deeper societal appreciation, it means we have a greater understanding of these areas. Companies are thinking longer term, and I think as companies think longer term and they think more about ESG, actually it's impacting their performance. So when we backtest the data, we can see that ESG-focused indices have matched or exceeded returns of their standard counterparts. So, in other words, I really do think we have arrived at that why not moment.
Thank you, Alex. Yaniv, Amdocs is a global leader with a large presence in Israel and probably one of the most advanced companies locally and globally in terms of its corporate social responsibility, CSR strategy, and implementation. Can you tell us about this and how does it run and maintain this strategy around the world?
Sure. So, Amdocs as a global company has great responsibility because we are serving the telecommunication and the entertainment and the media markets, and as such we are responsible for shaping the customer experience of billions of people worldwide in those areas. Communication and entertainment and media are the lifeline of the modern society, as you know, and we are doing it for all layers of society. including people with disability and financial inclusion and social inclusion and emerging markets. And we have made it part of our business strategy, not only our organization. For example, we have a business around emerging markets, mobile financial services, financial inclusion into the middle class of the millions of people who have mobile phones and don't have bank accounts, just as an example. But also, this is part of our organization. And our employees worldwide are being part of the communities in which we operate. We have donated 35,000 of volunteer work in 2018, 15,000 of them, by the way, is in Israel. And we are very proud of being involved in education, people with disabilities, low social economical background, etc. And another point is inclusion. So we are believers of creating a better future through inclusion. For example, diversity, this is a core value in Amdocs. 43% of our management are women, and they are managing significant portion of the business and the employees. Just as an example. I want to share a personal activity that I'm being part of. So I sit on the board of the 8200 Impact Accelerator, which is basically taking social entrepreneurs and helping them create businesses out of their ideas. This is the 5th cycle, and Amdocs has been a partner from year 1 of this program. And these startups create businesses. It's not charity. They raised over $40 million in investments and grants over the years. We're talking about robotic wheelchairs, devices that measure pollution, clean water in Africa, really different initiatives, and it's been great to be part of how you can take social tech and create an impact. Last example, just last week, I'm from the AT&T Foundry, so we are creating innovation together with AT&T, it's a joint venture. We participated in a hackathon by Makers from Heroes, which is about achieving the dreams of people with disabilities. So we helped, for example, a person who cannot use his right hand to play the piano again, leveraging really advanced technology, brain-machine interface. And this is very exciting and very impactful for the industry. So Amdocs is taking CSR very, very seriously, being part of our organization, being part of our strategy, and we are very proud of it.
Thank you very much. Ms. Fried, taking a more macro picture, how in your view should government and business partner in the challenges of environmental and social?
I think they absolutely go hand in hand. And sometimes one hand leads a little bit more than the other. But in a time like this, so for instance, we have never had in the state of Florida a government cabinet officer who expanded the anti-discrimination clause for LGBTQ. That was one of the first things that I did once I got elected. So hopefully that leadership from my office helps to promote equality across the state of Florida and being a leader in those types of issues. And going back to diversity and inclusion, I too created a position inside of my administration to promote diversity and inclusion because that's an important aspect. And a lot of times corporations look to government to lead the way and to be making sure that there's not over-regulation for entrepreneurs in the business community to feel like they can be entrepreneurs and not have a lot of the red tape and the over-regulation. But on the other hand, that if in fact the corporate side isn't pushing the envelope and going out there, especially on the environmental aspects, it's sometimes government that is going to have to step in to make those actual pushes. You know, as Commissioner of Agriculture, one of my biggest issues is to make sure that our agriculture community is doing the best management practices when it comes to environmentally savvy technologies and water conservation and environmental issues, hoping that the corporate side and the business side actually becomes leaders But if they don't, we need to incentivize them and to potentially push them in that direction. So the partnership between government and the business side on the pushing of social issues as well as environmental issues is a direct partnership. But on the other side is the corporations are the one who are going to create the technology, the innovations, the new ways to deal with environmental concerns. And we are able into government to then allow that to happen in the state of Florida and throughout the entire country and the world. So it's absolutely a partnership. And a lot of times in government, we can't pay for some of the advancements. So we are going to rely on the corporations to take those next steps. And certainly being an example, half of my department, half of my division directors are women or of diversity. And so being a leader and showing example of how this works and to make sure that we're breaking down barriers and stereotypes sometimes is that the leader is government, but it is a direct partnership and going hand in hand.
Just a follow-on question. Do you leverage businesses in your strategy?
Yeah, certainly. You know, as I look towards environmental issues, for instance, and I oversee also our energy office in the state of Florida. So the newest of technologies and advancements in energy, whether it's solar, natural gas, using biofuels in that research, my department as government doesn't have the technology and the ability to research. So I go out to the corporations and say, what is out there, which is also why I'm here in Israel. It is to learn the research and what you all have been able to do on innovation, on agriculture and energy and water, and take that research that is here in Israel and take it back to my corporations and say, here is what is happening here in Israel, here's how we can partner, and how as government do I help connect those dots and make sure that you are not over-regulated to not be able to bring those new technologies into Florida. So that is absolutely, we've got to be working together, and I bring those ideas to corporate America and to my agriculture community, and then I push them to make sure that they're actually going into that direction and creating the partnership with companies like here in Israel.
Thank you. Alex, BlackRock has been managing assets in Israel for 10 years now. Can you talk about the saving patterns of the Israeli investors and how, if any, does BlackRock Global CSR-oriented strategy affects these patterns here, if any?
So here in Israel, when it comes to CSR, I would say that Israeli investors are just starting to talk about this area. There is a lot of interest, but I would say that we're very early in the journey. You know, as I said, 2 or 3 years ago, we wouldn't have even been having panels like this. So the fact that it's even happening is a very encouraging sign. And I would say that this is the case in many countries. Many countries are just starting to adopt the whole idea of CSR. Different countries, you know, are at different phases in the journey. Some countries are, you know, further into the journey than other countries, but I think we're at the very beginning of this particular trend. You know, I remember coming here over 10 years ago, and Israeli investors were just starting to invest in global markets. So that was a new trend 10, 15 years ago, and they were doing it mainly by using passive investments. So, you know, I think the signs are very encouraging, and I'm very confident that in the years to come, we'll see more and more money from Israeli investors going into CSR and ESG type investments.
Do you have an estimate how much of the money that you manage here is in that direction?
Well, as I said, we're very early in the process. I mean, one thing we are doing more and more is we are talking to clients more about CSR. We have had some of our teams over here. We've held investment forums here. There's a lot of interest in it. So at this point, it's going to be low. But like I said, I'm confident that in years to come, it will become a higher and higher percentage. And we're committed to continue to come out here and talk and educate clients about the environment and the ecosystem.
Partly, hopefully, through panels like this, that we can
absolutely.
educate the market.
Yeah.
Yaniv, over the past year, we started working together on our pet project, Outside. It's a joint collaboration of 10 of the largest Israeli and American companies and several government agencies to find solutions for the challenges posed by the rapid adoption of technologies and their impact on the future of employability. Amdocs is leading this effort, and you are one of the mentors of one of the 10 groups that we have. Can you tell us what drives Amdocs to this, and why is it important to you personally?
So, with the rise of machine learning and robotics and automation, coupled with the social demographics that we know in Israel of population not being part of the workforce and Generation Z joining the workforce with completely different requirements, so we joined forces with 9 other of the top employers in Israel in order to take a bite at this problem. How can we help to shape the future of employability, the people that we as an industry are going to recruit in the future? How can we train them better? How can we reskill our existing workforce? How can we adjust our workplace to accept those people into the workforce? So what we have done, and you are leading this obviously, is we took 200 amazing, multidisciplinary, highly talented people from all these organizations. We have a think tank around this topic, and we are basically trying to create a process, and Amdocs is leading this process, to find solutions to this problem. And we are looking at it very openly. We are working with government agencies, we are working with NGOs, and with the communities in order to find problems. We believe that the industry should be part of the solution of the future of employability. I'm very excited to see what will come up of it. We are in the middle of the way. My group personally is looking into how we can include Orthodox Jews better into which is a population that is underserved in the employment world. So this is what my group is doing, but there are 9 other groups who are tackling completely different issues. Hopefully we can make a difference, and it's important because we are part of this ecosystem.
And I can say that this project has certainly created a lot of interest through government and businesses throughout the country.
The amount of passion and energy in this group is just amazing.
Indeed. Mr. I think we have time for just one more question, so we're going to ask you your favorite pet project, and it's about cannabis. You led a change in the regulation in Florida, and can you talk about this? It's a very hot topic here as well.
Yeah, so I got a minute and a half to talk about hemp. In the United States, cannabis and medical marijuana, as well as the hemp plant, have been federally illegal for decades. This past year, the U.S. government allowed each of the states to start creating hemp programs. And so in the state of Florida, we just got passed our first hemp bill and legislation that's going to be presented to the governor. And I have seen hemp. My vision for hemp is going to be an industrial revolution for our state and for our country and for the world. Because talking about ways for government and for corporations and businesses to work together, that I'm going to be able to create an environment where entrepreneurs can come in. Hemp is not only going to be used in Florida and throughout the world for the production of CBD, which I know that you all are very familiar with as well, but also the industrial side, which is what makes me the most excited, because there's 25 to 35,000 known usages for the industrial hemp. That is going to be a replacement for our plastics, for our styrofoam, for all the harmful things, for creating hempcrete instead of concrete, replacements of paper, cotton, and it really is going to be an opportunity for entrepreneurs to come in, do this research, and be able to not only have new commodities and new opportunities for our country and for the world, but also is all biodegradable, so it's better for the environment. So the more that I can encourage the entrepreneurs to come to Florida to invest in our agricultural new commodity, the more we're going to be able to really change the way the world looks at hemp, and really going to be something that is just going to revolutionize the world.
Thank you very much. Who would have believed this is indeed changing times? The government and business are joining hands in marijuana, so thank you very much to the panelists. Thank you very much to all of you for listening.